En esta entrevista hablo con Kasia. Kasia es coach, que se llama Embodiment Coach. No sé bien cómo traducir esto al español. El caso es que está especializada en tratar con traumas. Y creo que el trauma es un tema fundamental, especialmente en lo que estamos viviendo ahora con el COVID. Es un tema que no se habla normalmente, que no nos preparan para superarlo. Y trauma no es estas grandes cosas que nos pasan en la vida, también son estas pequeñas cosas que nos pasan todos los días. Así que súper interesante todo lo que nos cuenta Kasia sobre cómo lidiar con el trauma y qué necesitamos para ello y qué pasa cuando lidiamos con él. Así que realmente te aconsejo que veas esta entrevista con Kasia. Te dejo con ella. Chao. Hello, Kasia. Thank you so much for being here and for being part of Inspira. It's really a pleasure to have you here as an embodiment coach. So really looking forward to hearing all that you have to say about trauma and other issues we're going to talk about.
Thank you, Minerva. I feel very excited and very honored that I've been invited to speak here. It's like, yeah, it's so very dear to my heart, the topic that we're going to speak about. So, yeah.
Yeah, so let's go into that. So first question, what is trauma? And I know trauma is something that people maybe don't really want to look at it, but today we're going to look at trauma. So yeah, what is trauma?
Yeah, and it's really interesting that you say that, because trauma, usually when people think of trauma, they think it's something big like, okay, a war or, an accident or violence, something really big that happened to people, and then they end up with trauma. And one of the things that people don't understand is that there's also such a thing as developmental trauma. And we all have some degrees of trauma. And so to break it down, trauma is what happens to your nervous system as you experience something that is overwhelming. And there is a book by Peter Levine. So if anyone is interested to look that up, it's Waking Tiger, I think it's called. And he explains trauma in a really beautiful way. And I just sum it up here. So imagine a zebra being chased by a lion, right? What happens in the zebra, the nervous system goes into fight and flight. Yeah, so the zebra is running for its life, 180 kilometers an hour, just like pumped with adrenaline. Now, the lion grabs the zebra. The zebra goes into what? It's called a freeze. It goes stiff and stops, yeah? Now, that has two reasons why biology does that. And one of it is it's actually a compassionate way for nature to deal with these situations, because it means the zebra is not going to feel when it gets eaten alive. Mm-hmm. So it numbs the process, yeah? So when we get overwhelmed and we cannot fight and flight, we go numb, which means we don't feel everything. That's actually a really good thing for us. Now, the second reason nature does that is because it gives the zebra a second chance of survival. Mm. So imagining you play dead, the lion might actually think, well, okay, zebra is dead, I go and chase another zebra for dessert, whatever, right? And so if that happens in that second instance and the lion gets chased away and the zebra has a second chance, what happens next? The zebra will start shaking and like literally tremoring and shaking all this energy that was there from running, yeah, because it didn't just go away, it didn't just evaporate. So imagine you're running full of adrenaline and then you stop. Where does all this energy go? It's still in the body. So the zebra has to first discharge all that energy, and it does so by shaking. And that's how it regulates the nervous system, and it eventually is able to get up, go to its zebra friends, and it's not traumatized. Yeah. So what we have to understand is that we have the same mechanism inside of our brain, because we have these three parts of our brain: the reptilian brain, the limbic brain, and the neocortex. And the reptilian brain is what's responsible for the fight, flight, and freeze. And so we are very similar to like animals. But what happens in us is that we often experience this kind of freeze, but we don't experience it when we get chased by tigers, because that doesn't happen anymore. But we experience it through stress, for traffic and traffic jams, and a boss shouting at us. Or when we are children, we experience it through the disharmonious relationships at home, through, maybe our parents shouting at us, or all these different threats that our nervous system feels like it's a lion chasing us, right? Mm-hmm. And we don't have the chance to run away or to fight it, so we go into a freeze. Now, oftentimes we don't get the chance to discharge it because we don't understand the process, because we don't live in a trauma-informed society that helps us to discharge. Yeah. So there is not a container where we go, oh, this is what happens to us, and this is what needs to happen for us to come back to balance. So it stays in our system. And this freeze then becomes the tension that we carry in the body. And this tension that we carry in the body then eventually becomes a personality. It becomes our thought patterns. It becomes our emotional patterns. Yeah. So all these things we experience, like negative thought patterns, depression, in a way, it all has to do with something in us that's been blocked, frozen. So trauma is like frozen energy that gets stuck in the body. It hasn't been released.
Wow.
Yeah.
I love it. And I love the way you expand trauma. As you were saying, it's not only something super big that can happen to you in your life, like 2 or 3 things. No, it can be everyday stress, everyday negative emotions, your everyday just environment can be a trauma and can get into your body. So talking about trauma and this moment right now of COVID situation, how does this COVID situation affect us, affect the nervous system? Oof.
Yeah.
Big topic, I suppose.
It's a huge one, and I feel really, it touches me because, I work with this, so I have tools and I understand what happens to our brain. And so I kind of can deal with it in a maybe, like, I don't know, healthier somehow way. But I really see there are so many people who don't have this information, who don't have the tools. And I feel really like, wow, how can you cope with what's happening in the world right now if you don't understand what's happening to your nervous system? Mm. And so let's go back to 2020 when the first lockdown happened, right? So imagine all of a sudden there was this abstract threat. Yeah, this virus, like no one knew what was going on. Yeah, but we all go into, oh my God, there's a danger, there's a threat, there's a lion chasing us, but we don't even know where from, how. It can be anywhere, it can be on, so there's our bodies literally go into fight and flight. But what happened straight after, we get put into lockdown. Yeah, meaning you just stay at home and you don't move. So we cannot fight the virus. We cannot run away from it. Yeah. But what can we do? We can only go into freeze. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So what happened to many, and it's still happening to many, is we literally went collectively into a fear response, into a freeze response. And the effects that has on us, I mean, there are so many. Is because the nervous system literally is full of, okay, I want to express my feelings. I want to express my fear. I want to express my anger. I want to do something about discharging all this energy. And then there is actually no space to do that. And there is no space to do that because now, a year later, as we've gone through so many cycles of this situation, what's becoming more and more clear is that the danger is not just the virus, right? The threat is not the virus. What is feeling threatening to us is the increased amount of polarization. Yeah. Everyone is having a different experience of what's happening, a different perspective of what's happening. And so now I want to express how I feel about it, but that might be threatening to someone else. And that someone else might be your closest family member. Yeah. So for example, in my family is like, my dad is fully into conspiracy theory. My brother is fully into, go for vaccinations. Like, it's been really painful to watch how that rift is happening in the family, because they're both, and the funny thing is, it's kind of the tragic comic thing, is that both the nervous system is actually in fight and flight and freeze. They're in the same boat, but the content and the way how they choose to project that out is different. And so there cannot be any connection or empathy because they're both challenged. So this is happening everywhere around the world. And it's really painful to see it, because how can we get to a coherent way of sense making and find a solution if we are all actually somehow, in a freeze or fight and flight response? Because what happens when we're in a freeze and fight and flight response, as you can imagine, our ability to rationally think gets decreased. Our ability to empathize completely shuts down. So we cannot really connect, and because we are in danger, so we why would we want to connect? We have to take care of ourselves.
Yeah, as you were saying, I think at the beginning we were not prepared for something like this emotionally, and this just arrived, no, and everybody's dealing with it as they can, the best they can, and of course, in most cases, it's not the best way, but we haven't been trained on how to do it. So my next question is, what can we do about it? What can we do with trauma? How can we deal with it? What is the way in which we can work with trauma and with our emotions?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think the first step is to really educate ourselves, to create a trauma-informed society. So by this call, what we're doing is we're actually helping that step, because the more people that understand how the nervous system responds, then you start empowering yourself, So tracking, where on the spectrum am I? Am I in fight and flight? Am I in freeze? Or am I actually in a balanced, neutral space where I feel open and I can respond, like literally, with empathy, with rational thinking? Where am I on that spectrum? So when you're reading a Facebook post, when you're listening to the news, to just really track, whoa, how is this affecting me? Do I want to run away and not hear about this anymore? Because this is now happening actually more and more, is that this state of overwhelm from all the negative news and all the incoherence in the types of information, because none of it makes sense anymore, right? It's like,
well, you can get so many different information from anywhere. You start to not believe in anything. That's true.
Right, and so we go into overwhelm, because if it's just the tiger, if it's just
at least you know it's a tiger,
right? Then okay, I just have to run. It's super simple. But if it's this like virus, and then you don't know, is the virus real? Is it not real? Does the vaccination work? Does it not work? Like all these informations, it's like you just don't know what action you can take. You don't know where to run. You don't know how to fight. So you just go into freeze. And so like every single one of us needs to take responsibility for our nervous system. And first, become aware, track, and then of course, become honest enough and vulnerable to communicate that. I think once we start communicating and really saying like, you know what, guys? So rather than fighting, it's like, I'm in the right, I got it right. The way I see it is the way to see it, because that creates more polarization. Is to say, actually, I feel really scared. I have no idea where this is going. I'm really concerned for humanity. I'm really concerned for us to make it as a species. I'm concerned for my children. I'm concerned for so many parts of this, and it's painful. And it's painful. It hurts me that I cannot go outside and not see people without face masks. It makes me feel depressed. It makes me feel isolated. It makes me feel alone. And I'm actually angry. and I feel so frustrated because I don't know what to do about it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is the kind of conversations of honesty and vulnerability that we need to start having.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so the first part to deal with trauma, if I'm hearing you correctly, is at least acknowledge your emotions in a way, no? Like, I'm feeling all of this. And this vulnerability part, which we are not really used to it at all, is this opening, no? Opening to yourself and to others, I suppose.
Yeah, exactly. And then, because as you do that, what I've noticed, and what you will notice also if you start doing it, right, is that when you do it, you give permission for other people to do it. It's like an invitation. It's like, hey, let's put our weapons down, take a breath and just feel. Because, I remember the first last year in lockdown, when I was still, a lot on Facebook and trying to make sense of what's going on. And like, sometimes the way that people would communicate on Facebook with each other, I was just shocked and mortified at the level of disrespect, rudeness. And I thought, put these two people that are communicating like this on Facebook with each other, put them in one room, let them have them look into each other's eyes for a minute without speaking and just breathe together. They would never, ever speak to each other like that. It's only possible because there is this disconnect, because I don't look into your eyes. I don't have to look into your eyes. I can just stay in my story that you're the bad guy, because this anger or whatever I'm feeling, it has to be channeled somewhere. So I can project it on you. I can project it on the stupid people, right? Whoever they are. I can project it on the government. I can project it on the police. I can project it on anyone. And I don't have to take care of it. But as soon as you actually just look into other people's eyes and see the human, the scared, suffering and pain human that's in front of you, that is a reflection of yourself, then you can start dealing and unraveling what's happening to you.
And I suppose in most cases it's the same emotion, right? But just the way you act through that emotion, maybe it can be opposite. And one person, goes to conspiracy, and the other person goes to lockdown, and I'm going to do everything they say. But in the end, it's fear, or in the end, it's rage, or whatever, no? But they just act differently. But in the end, they have the same issues inside, and the same emotions, and the same things to deal with. So
that's exactly, and that's exactly what's so tragic about it. That the fighting, when you watch the fighting, and you go like, can't you see? We're all in the same boat, and
it's just a matter of going deeper, I think, than we're used to. And this other thing you were saying, the fighting mode. The fighting mode is this, in a way, is this, no, I know I'm right. I know this is this way. And it's not opening up my vulnerability or other things. It's this armor in a way, I can do it. I'm going to go through this. And in a sense, I think it's the way we're used to be. Like, just be strong. Don't cry. Just move forward. Go to the next challenge, and, just go there and don't really stop, think, and see what's happening within you, and do that check-in, inside. So how do you see society in those terms? This fighting, this vulnerability, how do you think we are in that sense?
Can you repeat the question? How do we think?
Are we all fighters? Can you see that we maybe are becoming more vulnerable, or not? We are just really looking just going forward and not looking back.
Well, I think that a large percentage of people are still very much in the fight and flight, in the survival mode. But I also believe or see that more and more people are waking up, right, to the fact that there's something more. Basically, we're going around the cycle, and we see it's not working. And we've been in this now for a year, and also before that, right? COVID is just exacerbation of what's already been there. And now it's just really rubbed into our faces. So we see, so there's also this like beauty in the lockdown, that many of us had a chance to slow down and to go inside and to feel and to question the reality we're living, not whether the virus is real or not, but whether, what kind of values is our collective based on, and what kind of values do we want to bring forth to create the world that we want to live in. And so in that way, I believe more and more people are waking up, because, the fighting can only go on for a certain amount of time. We then get just tired.
It's a lot of energy that you need to put into the fighting.
But, like I was saying, the body is in freeze and it has to discharge, which is, the fight and flight coming out. Once it's discharged, meaning there's only that much of that energy there, then we're literally like, okay, I've tried it. I've tried it all. I've tried to fight. I've tried to run. And I shouted and I screamed. And now I'm just like, okay, what's next? Mm-hmm. And this is, I feel there is this opportunity that humanity is in right now, that we can really ask ourselves, what's next?
Mm. And how do we want to be next? No, I think in challenging times is when you really challenge yourself also. Like, what, as you were saying, what are my values? How am I responding to this? Am I being, this hater guy in social media? How am I behaving? How am I having these connections and relationship with others? No, I think these are really important questions that we need to do to ourselves in order to grow, no, and become better.
Absolutely.
So I think it's a great way, painful, but then let's see it in a positive way also. Yeah. Anyway, let's move on. So, how do we express these emotions? I know you are talking about releasing. What do you mean by releasing? How are there any other ways of letting this all out without damaging anybody?
Right, because it is a completely a reality that this energy is inside of us. So we all experience anger, frustration, fear, and just thinking or just being aware of it is not enough, because it's still inside your body. Yeah. And so the ideal way how to express this is to actually create safe containers, meaning, we, especially in these times, but actually always, we need community. Yeah. I mean, I can express whatever I want, but, okay, so going back to trauma, one of the key elements that happens in trauma is that when we have a traumatic experience, we actually feel very alone in that experience. And this is how trauma stays stuck in the body, is because we really have this experience of no one will understand, the fear and the pain that I'm experiencing right now. I'm completely alone in it. Mm-hmm. And this is why it's so scary to go through it. In trauma release work, so for example, I work as a breathwork facilitator and I do trauma release with people. In trauma release work, one of the key elements that happens in healing is that there is another being, there's another person that holds space for you, that witnesses you as you go through the experience of releasing or feeling the fear and the anger and whatever is there. And this element of the other being there with you. So you have an experience that in the moment of your biggest pain, there is someone else. That is actually the biggest, most profound key to healing.
Wow.
Yeah. And I've experienced this so on myself, like that's why I'm so passionate about this work, is because when I was really in my biggest contraction, or whatever you want to call it, is, and then just look into someone else's eyes, that's what really opens the heart and softens us. And you go like, I'm not alone. Mm. And that's what gives you the trust and the courage to keep going and to open up and to go through this, because you're not alone. And so what is so tragic about the situation right now is many people do feel very alone in this. But when you look at it, it's like, we're not alone. Everyone is going through it. But how do we come together and create containers where people can safely just express how they're feeling, right? Without projecting it outside, but really just like, I'm feeling this and I just need to be held in that. And so there's different ways, of course. One of the work that I'm involved in is called Heart IQ, and that's community work and circle work. So we come together in a circle, and if something is alive in a person, they're invited to go inside of the circle and to express what's moving for them. And, you know, this might sound weird if you've not experienced it, but when you have experienced it, it's profoundly healing, because to be literally held by a tribe of people, and they're all committed to staying open, to staying loving and not judging. It's really, it brings you back to safety. It brings you back to belonging. It takes away the whole story of making yourself wrong, because most of us struggle with, I'm doing something wrong if I'm experiencing things inside that I cannot understand. Yeah, there's something wrong with me. So that's all these stories that keep trauma in place. And having a loving community that holds space for you to go through it, that's really, I think, the number one key to healing. And so that takes us back to, we have to create a trauma-informed society.
Yeah, and community, as you were saying, I think it's something we are very lack of nowadays, and especially this safe community, this loving community, you know, because even some people even with their friends don't really have that. Friends sometimes are very critical, judgmental, and they because they're not trained also to sustain these emotions, not within them, not within anybody. So I suppose it's as you were saying, we're not educated as a trauma society, and we don't have these containers in place. There are some, of course, and thank God, and I hope they replicate and they grow and grow. But yes, we're very individualistic, no? I don't know.
Absolutely, and this is why it's so painful what we're going through right now. But you know what you're doing with the Inspira Summit, you're actually creating it. You're informing people about what's happening to us. You're informing, you are creating a container. So everyone who's on these calls, on watching these interviews, they're starting to feel like, oh wow, you know, I'm not such a weirdo, you know. What I'm experiencing is okay, it's normal, everyone is going through it. And there is people who understand that. There's people who have empathy for that. There is actually safe spaces, yeah. So you're creating a safe space for people to come through Inspira. It's really beautiful.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. What other ways of dealing with that? I know community is one. I think there's something like heart intelligence. What do you mean by that?
Well, heart intelligence is the ability to track, we've already talked about it, track what's moving for you, and then the ability to communicate that. Okay, so is this part of connecting with myself, right? Nice. Yeah, and being able to communicate that in a non-judgmental way. Yeah. So literally just saying like, right now, and so tracking means tracking the felt sense, yeah? So this is another key element of healing trauma, is to, and we can then start talking about embodiment, is start feeling the felt sense in our body. So for example, if I experience anger, I can say, oh, I'm just so angry, right? And then sometimes what do you do with that? But if you start tracking, you start experiencing, where in my body is this anger? Oh, I experience this burning sensation in my chest, and there's a lot of pressure here. And then I experience it going through my hands, and I feel like I want to make fists and hit something, you know? All of a sudden, there's this whole dimension of the felt sense of your physical experience. And now that gives us actually more space to work with the energy that's inside of us than just saying I'm angry, because, you know, just saying I'm angry and then expressing the anger, you just express it and express it and express it, and it's still there. But when you take it one step down into the physical body, oh, there is heat in my chest, there's heat in my hands, there's this tension. Then you can say, okay, what does the body want to do here? And then you can start going like, actually, I just feel like punching something. So you punch something, but it's one step removed from the story. You know, so there's an intelligence to the body, to the animal that is the body. And like the zebra, it doesn't decide, oh, I'm just going to shake now and release my trauma. It just happens, right? It's just an intelligence that guides us to come back to equilibrium and balance. And the same happens to us. So we start listening to the body, or the felt sense in the body. There is a movement often that happens, and we have to combine it with breath. With taking away the judgment from the part of our brain that's thinking too much. It's like, okay, just trust this process. And then as we are moving with breath, the body starts just unwinding and unraveling. So I just want to hit something. That's a discharge. And then all of a sudden the story goes away because the energy leaves. So that is heart intelligence also. That is more, I would call it embodiment. The heart intelligence part is being able to communicate the needs that you have, like, oh, I need to fight, and just being really in touch what's moving for you. And that's a practice that gets easier and easier the more you do it.
Yeah, and I like what you're saying. In the end, if I'm feeling this rage or whatever, it's better that I release it myself than I release it against somebody else, right? So just listen to yourself, ask the body, and do what the body wants to do without harming anybody. For sure. And just do your thing and release the energy. Perfect. So you were talking about mind and body. Can you specify a little bit more about this? How do they work together, mind and body? So
it's funny because, you know, in our society or culture, we are conditioned to look at them as like two separate things. You know, we talk about my body, my mind, and there's like this perceived separation. But in truth, they are always working together. You know, so if I have a certain thought, let's say I have just thoughts of anger, we just stay with anger, or of thoughts of fear. When you start tracking, meaning become more and more aware and connected to your body, you start feeling that, wow, if I start repeating thoughts of anger in my mind, there is a physical correlation in my body, and vice versa. So I might feel physically like, oh, there's something going on. I don't know. There is a feeling in my stomach. You start feeling into that sensation in your stomach. And you just ask yourself like, what's there? What's the sensation saying? What is the sensation needing? And there might be a story that starts revealing itself saying like, I'm really angry. Or I'm really scared. I need attention. I need this. Whatever that may be, but they're really working together. And, you know, I used to work as a massage therapist, and I used to go into offices and give people like neck and shoulder massages, you know, and it would always surprise me how disconnected people were from their body. You know, they're sitting on the computer all day, 8 hours. Everything here becomes stiff and tense, and you get all stressed like this. And here I come, give them 10, 15 minutes. I couldn't do this job for very long because it was so frustrating for me to go like, why don't you see that your mind, your stress is creating this body to tense up, to feel contracted, and to, you know, literally hold yourself in a pattern that doesn't allow life force to flow through, And so this is why I got into embodiment, because I just feel very passionate to help people understand this correlation between mind and body, that there's no separation. There's always a connection. And it's our job to be listening to this connection. To literally, when I feel tired, I would take a break. I mean, it goes to that kind of basic simplicity. When I feel tired, I take a break. I take a breath. I connect with myself and go, what I need right now. Oh, I need water. Oh, I need to move my body. Oh, maybe I need a hug. Yeah. Rather than, no, I need to be strong here and I need to like push against these feelings and needs. That's how we create the separation.
Yeah, completely. And sometimes when I'm coaching some clients and we go into the body, it's amazing how many things reveal. The emotions that are inside, just by what are you feeling? Is there something blocking? Blah, blah, blah. Yeah, and then it creates a whole thing, a whole story that was inside the body. It's really crazy. That's one thing I wanted to comment. But the other thing is that you were saying we are disconnected, but that's this numb this way we walk around without connection with our bodies. Don't you think in a way is the way we have to not really feel the pain? Because what happens if we open up to all the stress and all the pain? How can we deal with that without being overwhelming for us?
Yeah, so, like I was saying before about the trauma, so we are numb and disconnected because something happened to us, or it's happening on a continuous basis because we are living in a world that is very traumatizing. We're living in a world that's very stressful. So there's so many things that are happening that are painful. Yeah, there is poverty, there is war, there is pollution, there is
climate change that is going to kill us all.
Exactly. So if you allow yourself to open your heart to that, yes, it can just completely overwhelm you, and like, I just don't want to actually be here anymore, right?
Yeah, I don't want to
Get me out of here.
Yeah, I don't want to sense, and I don't want to feel anything, right?
Yeah. But because we are in this numb, and because there is no container that's safe, we stay in the numbness. So it's like, if I allow myself to feel, then I have to start feeling this, and I don't want that, which is completely understandable because there is no safe container. Yeah. The more we create safe containers, the easier it will become to step by step open up, not all at once, right? Because that also happens a lot in the personal growth world, is that people start having healing experiences, they start opening up, and then they go, I want to open up and feel it all. And then they go, actually, that was not a good idea.
It was too much. I couldn't handle it.
And a lot of empathic people do that, So there is a big need to understand our limitations and to really work on our boundaries and stretch the heart muscle in the container, but without flooding it, only bit by bit. And how do we deal with the pain without getting overwhelmed as we're starting to open up and feel something? Well, we take action. So first you feel it, you may cry about it, you may express your pain. Then it's important to not stay in that pain, but to start acting. So it's almost like we take out the medicine from it. So for example, this is why I'm in the work that I'm doing, is because that's the only way for me to deal with what's happening in the world, because I am an empath and I feel all the pain. But if I just felt all the pain, I would just get depressed, start watching Netflix, and never go out again. But if I start talking about it, and if I start connecting to people, and I bring this awareness, this frequency, so to speak, into the world, then I start feeling empowered, And this sharing my medicine from it gives me a sense of, hope. It gives me a sense of, it gives me a lot of joy when I see people transform and open up and heal. and it gives me a sense of purpose and meaning in life.
Mm.
So this is almost like
it's transforming, right? It's transforming the emotions, feeling them, and then transforming them in something, as you were saying, joy, purpose. No, there's other emotions you can feel, maybe coming from that, but because you're doing something new, something different, you're acting because of that, you can feel different things.
Absolutely. And I think the key is to really sharing your medicine. Yeah. This is how we transform, you know. And I mean, this is what you're doing also with freedom, right? You're taking action because it's like a direct response to what's happening in the world and the pain that you're feeling. But there is this equal amount. The pain is almost like the fire, the fuel that feeds the fire to take action.
Yeah. Well, it can be done. I mean, it can be used like that. Not everybody uses it this way. You know, the pain, as we were saying, sometimes can be overwhelming. So I really appreciate what you're saying about this transformation and doing something positive in a way. No, not just staying in the pain. I think that's really wow. Like really.
And you know, and I would like to say here to the people who are listening that, you know, you don't have to do big things like you're doing the Inspira summit. It's like huge, and I'm like, I would never be able to do that. And you also don't need to become a therapist or a coach, but just practicing, cultivating on a daily level your compassion muscle, your empathy muscle, being vulnerable and inviting people into that space of vulnerability and heart intelligence and connecting with your body and listening to your needs. I mean, that already is taking action. And because when you're embodying that, you know, people will feel it. Even if they don't understand it on a cognitive level, they will feel it. They will feel attracted to you. They will feel like, why you're smiling? Why you're happy? Why you're like, why do I feel so relaxed when I'm around you? Why do I feel safe? Conversation starts opening up. And from conversations, you know, new things can rise. Yeah. It's connection.
Yeah, for sure. I love it. I mean, like, I'm having goosebumps. Like, oh my God, yeah, this is so beautiful. And you're absolutely right. You don't really need big gestures. You just need to, become that change within you. And I think it's the best way for other people to attract other people into this path, for sure. Yeah,
right. And you're doing that. I mean, like, I know that you told me stories that the more that you're inviting people, like, I don't know, maybe you can say a little bit about it.
Well, it's beautiful. Is this you can think about that as a vibration, no? Some people say it's a vibration kind of thing. When you vibrate into more of these emotions you were saying, no, compassion or being grateful and all of that, you attract people that are in the same vibration, and it's beautiful. And then you grow together and you help each other. Like, now I help you, now you help me, and without this criticism and this judgment and all of that. So it's a beautiful way to create society, to create community first and then societies and so on.
Exactly. And I see this image that it's really like, it is like a virus, like the best possible virus, you know, it infects people, and then it spreads, it grows, it opens up, and there's more and more light, because the gift that, I mean, really, the only way that I can do the work that I'm doing is because I've been gifted, you know, the compassion and empathy and the wisdom of others. And it touched me so deeply that I just want to pay it forward, right? I want to share that gift, that medicine with others. And I know that all my clients that I've worked with, they have the same feeling. They're like, wow, thank you so much. It's been such a gift. And then they spread it. And this is how we slowly transform the world. And, you know, and that's just taking step by step and trusting that that's all that we can do, right?
Yeah, right. Definitely. And once you try it, you just want more and spread it. So, for sure. Well, Thank you, Kasia. I think this last message has been so beautiful. I think we can end the interview here because, well, it's been amazing hearing you, and especially about trauma, something that we, as I was saying at the beginning, we don't really talk about trauma at all, not enough for sure. So thank you for bringing all these key messages and all these learnings, and I'm sure are going to help a lot to people listening here. So thank you, Kasia.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Bye, Kasia. Ciao, ciao.